Mr. Deep Kapuria, Chairman CII MSME Council, Professor Shiba, Mr. Ejima, Mr. S.N. Tripathi from the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises, Ms. Sarita Nagpal, and all the members of the VSME family and potential members of the VSME family. It's a great privilege for me to be with you here today at the launch of the 1000 Visionary SME project. It's a long journey since we began 5 years back. And when this program was conceived, there was a bit of, I would say, caution, if not hesitation, if not skepticism, because what this program was attempting to achieve was quite radical. And this morning's presentations have shown to all of us how radical it has been and how transformative it has been. And I liked Mr. Srivastav's comments that the proof lies of the pudding, or the proof of the program lies in the pudding. And the pudding we saw was very dramatic. I think I had the privilege of seeing this in Bangalore last month, and I went there only because I was curious. I mean, I had some difficulties in scheduling, but I told Ms. Nagpal that I am curious, so let me come and understand what has been happening. And as Mr. Tripathi said, that in government we only look at files and papers, so I said, let me come and meet people and see what has happened. And Bangalore was an eye-opener for me. And in my discussions with people thereafter, I have really been setting out this aspiration or hope that we can disseminate this rapidly enough to all our SMEs. Because if I look at the SME segment in our country over the last 10-15 years, it's a mixed picture, just as if you look at the manufacturing segment in India, it's a mixed story. There's a story of extraordinary success, and there is also the other half of the story of great difficulty. And I liked your presentation very much because it brought out very dramatically the other half of the picture, or the other half of the story. You know, the potential lock on an enterprise. And if I look at India and our whole manufacturing story of the last 10-15 years, we have both side by side. The challenge before us is that in the coming 5-7 years, we can get the image of the lock a matter of history or a bad dream. And I think that is the challenge before us over the coming 5-7 years, that how do we get this possibility of dramatic transformation across to all our SMEs and all the clusters and all the owner entrepreneurs who are about to hand over the baton to the next generation. Because I meet entrepreneurs who say that my sons are not interested in the enterprise. They say, Dad, this history, I'd much rather, settle in the US doing a job or doing whatever your education has given me. And the worst, and what is really painful for me, let me go into trading or real estate. There's more money there. And I feel sad when I hear that, because at the end of the day, India's success or India's achievement of its tryst with destiny will depend on the success of the SMEs. It is only SMEs who will create the jobs we need. It is only the SMEs who will eliminate the poverty that we need to get rid of. So in fact, yesterday I was at an event with Vicky actually, and I made the point which I made also with CII events, that for 40-50 years we've been saying we want to get rid of poverty. 10-15 years we've been saying we want inclusive growth. But neither of this will happen unless we succeed in manufacturing and succeed in the vision of the national manufacturing policy of creating 100 million jobs. And most of those jobs will actually come from the SMEs and the success of the SME story. Now that voice is feeble in this country, and I think all of us involved in manufacturing have a challenge in making that voice stronger. That the success of poverty alleviation, the success of inclusive growth is dependent of the SMEs, is dependent on the success of manufacturing, and dependent on the creation of 100 million jobs. If we look at the great success of Japan and the great success of Japan in manufacturing, I think all of us must sit back and recognize the extraordinary success of Japan. Because this is a country where usable land per thousand has been the lowest in the developed world. In available usable land per thousand or per million has been about the lowest in the world. This is a country which has had no natural resources, whether it is coal, iron ore, oil, any mineral resource. And yet they became the greatest manufacturing nation of this last century and remain at the top today. How did they do it? And you got a glimpse of how they did it through the transformative stories which came on the drawing board. And the strength of Japan lies in their SMEs. It lies in the supply chain. And as a country, we will, and the area where we have succeeded, and which is the auto sector, of which the chairman is a very good example, is an example of the creation of a globally competitive supply chain. And a globally competitive supply chain through all the smart things, a glimpse of which we got in these presentations. The movement from the focus on production to the big M. And we have to replicate that in the entire spectrum of manufacturing. In fact, 2 days back I was in a discussion and there was great pessimism saying that the present times are not good in terms of numbers, but there was pessimism that have we lost the boat, can we ever succeed in manufacturing? I said, 25% of our manufacturing output comes from the auto sector, and this is a sector which is truly globally competitive in the supply chain. You look at every OEM who comes to India, he wants the existing players to create a new venture which partners one of his suppliers overseas so that he gets localization. I remember discussions with both Toyota and Volkswagen before the launch of the Etios and before the launch of the Volkswagen products. And both said that India is a very competitive and a tough market, and we will succeed only if we are also competitive in price. And we can only be competitive in price if 85-90% of components come from the very successful auto component industry of India. Now we need to replicate that elsewhere. Why can't we do it in IT, electronics, hardware? Why can't the Sonys we buy have 80-90% components in India? That's the challenge before us. And in this conversation there was pessimism that this can't happen. But I said, why can't it happen? The other challenges of India remain, erratic power supply, poor roads, poor infrastructure, etc., etc. But within those challenges, we have had outstanding success in the auto component industry in manufacturing. So why can't we have it elsewhere? And we'll have it elsewhere only if we succeed in creating the supply chains, creating a robust MSME network, creating entrepreneurship and innovation, and the critical eye which allows us to do innovation and to succeed. And I think the core of the whole Japanese partnership has been in persuading us to look at things differently, to change our attitudes, to develop that critical eye which allows us to transform what we are doing. That is the core message that I take away from this program and its successes, that we learn to look at things differently and we learn to do things differently, and when we do that we can transform ourselves and our enterprises. And this transformation, as I said, we need across the entire SME space. And I think that is the challenge before CII, that you have now extraordinary success with you. How quickly can you replicate it, scale it up, take it across the length and breadth of this country and take it across the length and breadth of our clusters and the industry verticals. Because clearly, Professor Shiba and his team have brought us to a point where I think we should be able to do this on our own on a much grander scale. And I was so glad that the Anand Group is now running a large program of its own on these lines for its, universe. So the challenge before CII is to create more Anands in their memberships, that you have people who run these programs on a much wider canvas. It's a great occasion of, I think, a momentous day for us today, because the next phase of the program is being launched. And this phase intends to build upon what we have achieved and take us to the next stage. And I think we are deeply appreciative of the Japanese government, JICA, and Professor Shiba and his team for having worked so selflessly and in a self-effacing manner in a truly cooperative and constructive partnership in bringing us to this stage of success, and then evolving the program for the next stage, which has the potential of really unleashing a wave of innovation and creativity in this country. And I think we are embarking on a challenging and exciting journey, and I'm sure we will succeed, just as we have succeeded in phase one. And this coming phase is terribly important because the focus is also now on innovation. Innovation not just in terms of processes for our enterprises, but the next stage in terms of products and radical reworking of innovation. And the key to that again lies in the attitude and the ability to see things differently, and an attitude and a way of working which forces us to think differently and critically all the time. In fact, what's not so widely known is that many of the great success stories of Japanese enterprises in the last 40, 50 years, 60 years, the initial breakthrough technological R&D actually happened elsewhere. But the Japanese were the smartest in working on it, in coming out with products which were great successes across the world. And that came from this attitude of mind, which allowed them not to be complacent with what had happened in America, but to really take it to the next stage and make it a great success. I hope that this partnership with Japan and this program will give us some of those attitudes and strengths to be truly innovative and creative, and then succeed in this new globalized economy in making India recognized globally as a place for manufacturing, just as the way that Japan has been for almost 70, 80 years. I think that is the ultimate vision of this partnership, and I do hope that we can work together to make it happen. Because just as India is today recognized as a place where you can do smart R&D, you can do design, you can do software, I think so we have part of the ecosystem already here. We have a lot of talented, bright young people. And there's great energy, there is great ingenuity, there's great creativity. So let's replicate that success in manufacturing. Let India be recognized as a global center for excellence and for being an outstanding place for manufacturing. And the Indo-Japanese partnership and cooperation is crucial and critical for that endeavor. And I think together we can and will do it. And I hope and do believe that this program and all that it will achieve in the coming years will by 2020 make India a major recognized force and place for manufacturing in the world.